Curtin Radio.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that need a lot of help, and sadly when the emotional decision comes between partners and families that they're going to divorce, it can be extremely costly. So as a result, a lot of people are going to do-it-yourself divorces, and they are hurting a lot of women. Joining me right now, and thank you indeed, is to Nicci Bilinsky, who is a family lawyer with the Taurus Legal Management. Thank you very much, Nicci.
Hi, Jenny. How are you today?
Look, I'm going well, thank you. That time of your life, a divorce, breakup of families, it's so emotional.
It is so emotional, Jenny. And speaking from not only a family law perspective, but also from a personal perspective as a woman who was in an abusive marriage with children, with one child, and had to get out of that myself, and then going through the rigmarole of what really you need to do to financially break free from that relationship and emotion, in terms of, sort of your emotions, dealing with those all at the same time, it can become very difficult.
Look, it's a build-up, isn't it, to that point that you make, or the decision you make to break away from this relationship. And Nicci, we're hearing awfully at the moment. It's just terrible of domestic violence murders that are happening. And if you've got a woman, even a man, I mean, he can suffer from it as well. But if you're trapped in that situation, the cost to get out of it is absolutely massive. You must come across it a lot.
I do, more than I would like to.
Yeah.
And without discriminating against the sexes, most often it is the women that come to me that are in a position where, they are being subjected to family violence inside the house. They don't have the funds, the money to be able to leave, but they can't stay either, and it puts them in a really tough position.
Oh, it sure does. I just hope, the government is saying they're going to do something about it, but unless, if you see a sign of domestic violence very early in a relationship and have it reported and leave then, you're trapped. It goes on forever. And there's an ultimate awful sacrifice that it gets made. We're getting off the point here. The point is, of course, the cost of going through a divorce through a lawyer can be expensive. And if you haven't got the money and you want to break free, what the heck are people doing now?
Yeah, look, what are they doing? Most people are trying to do it themselves, Jenny. I'm looking at the figures, and it's a staggering some 50% of women and men equally when they separate. We've got, if we look at, we've got the cost of living, that's rising. We're struggling to meet our expenses, and we've got the middle class, which effectively have no cash to go and see a lawyer, but they've got assets.
Yeah, got the home they share.
So what's happening is these people, they're not actually appraising themselves of proper advice. They're trying to negotiate on their own. And there's so many issues that can come along with that. And definitely when you look at sort of women and, you look at the balance of power, especially when we talk about a domestic violence situation, most often, that woman is going to want to rid herself from that abuse and sort of ends up having less of the financial resources from the relationship than she should.
Well, I think it's...
get out.
I think the statistics show that a lot of women, if they haven't been in the workforce during their marriage, if they've raised a family, if that's the case, they wouldn't have superannuation or, a way to get out of it. I wonder if you could define, when you say a do-it-yourself divorce, what is involved in that?
So it's really not a lot, and this is the problem, is that you're going to your partner or your former partner and you're trying to make an agreement about where the assets go.
Oh, just between each other?
Just between each other. So there's actually no formalised agreement, and effectively, when you don't formalise your agreement, what you're doing is you're putting your faith in your former partner that they're going to honour that agreement.
Yeah, of course. You don't put it in writing? People aren't doing that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And the thing is, this is when you say put it in writing, the parties might go and write it down themselves, but that's not a legally binding document.
No, it has to be witnessed.
And that's exactly right. And so what we recommend is that the parties actually are looking to formalise those documents in what we call a consent order, which means, so when we get these documents and we fill them out, it shows the assets of each party and it shows what they're both going to get. And in that process, when you file that document with the court, and that's the only court involvement I'm talking about, the parties have fundamentally agreed, then the court will look at that split and determine if it's just and equitable.
Okay.
So when we use that process and the court turns around and says, yes, this is fair, then, it can alleviate and help both parties get and feel like they've received a fair settlement.
Okay. So let me just get this clear. You're sort of so intent in your legal attitude to everything. So if people, let's just assume that they get together and talk about this. Number one, that's very rare if they go to divorce. So they get together, they have a written agreement, who's going to get what, who's going to what. They agree to that, they sign it. Then they have to go to court to get their divorce. Is that correct?
Yeah, so a divorce is actually a different thing.
Right.
So a divorce and a property settlement actually sit in two different areas. So you can, divorces themselves are quite easy to do on your own. You can jump online, fill out the application, and that can be a joint application. It's not that hard for an individual person to do a divorce themselves. But what I'm talking about is your property settlement. So when you've got kids as well, you might have an agreement for them.
Yeah.
And when you formalise that, if those orders are there and they might be breached in any way, you've got some recourse.
Yes, I get you. Yeah, that makes sense. Because, let's just say, generalising here, that women are emotionally driven, you say, and it's true. They tend to be the peacekeepers in the family, and so they might agree to things that down the track they may regret. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, Jenny, I see it all the time. And, in effect, I kind of did it myself, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
In my own property settlement, I look back now and I think, why did I give in so easily? And really it was because I wanted to keep the peace.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was looking forward and I was thinking to myself, I want to have a good relationship with the father of my child.
Yeah.
And that's going to be something that's ongoing for many years. And, perhaps selfishly, if I have to deal with that for the next, say, 15 years to life, like a jail sentence, really, I want it to be somewhat pleasant.
Well, of course, it's a very intelligent thing to think of, and hopefully that your partner that you're going to be divorced from very shortly will think the same way. But things can change; they can meet somebody else, and the partner says, "Well, I think you deserve more. Maybe you don't have to pay that," and so on. Okay, so what can women do that can't afford to get legal advice?
Yes. So, look, and this is one thing that I really feel passionately about, Jenny. Women can, and look, like men as well, let's just put it out there, but, we're talking about women today, can obtain the advice they need, and they should. And there are many resources out there to be able to do that. Many lawyers these days will offer a first interview for free.
Okay.
So you can get in there and talk to them for an hour and not have to pay anything.
That's so good to know, yeah.
So they will give you a good idea of where your settlement might sit based on that consultation.
Yeah.
And they will also be able to tell you if they can assist you and your matter could be funded. Perhaps you could pay at the end. So if you don't have the cash now, look, we look at women these days and their structure in the household. They are, quite often the ones that aren't earning the money.
Yeah.
They want some cash quickly, and then they make these decisions to do these DIY divorces, which see them getting less. But really, they don't have to. They can get access to good legal advice, and any good legal firm will offer a pay-at-the-end option.
Okay. What about legal aid? Does that come into the equation at all?
Legal aid will not fund you if you have a property.
Right. Okay. What if you're renting with your partner?
So the reality is that when you're renting, you're not really... Look, I'm just making an assumption here, but if you can't afford a lawyer and legal aid, so you probably won't have property proceedings.
Okay. Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
When you look at legal aid in general, it mostly exists for children's matters.
Okay, there's so many areas that people should know about. I think before you go into any relationship, you should do a check on their behaviour, the person you're going to end up with. Check on all the areas where you can get help if it ever ever needed.
Can we put those checks on the dating site?
Yes,
that would help me a lot.
Well, we all learn. We're all emotional. You know, we all get caught out. There's no two ways. I don't think anyone's immune. No one's immune to that, Nicci. Look, that's excellent advice, and you have seen situations where women, and men too, but women mostly, are suffering financially and probably ending up with very, very little, probably out there homeless with their children. That's not unusual.
Well, it's certainly on the rise, and there needs to be some sort of government intervention.
Yeah, how though?
I don't think that we're doing enough.
What can we do? What can they do?
Well, I know. I mean, look, I'm at a loss, just as you are. I mean, all we can do is make sure that women, especially the ones that are ending up on the streets, homeless, in their cars with their kids, get the advice before they leave that house, because if they've got a property, they should be staying in it. If there's abuse, they get an intervention order and they get him out. So that at least they've got that roof over their head. So I guess really what it comes down to is getting that advice before you take any action. Don't end up on the street because you don't have to.
That's good advice, Nicci. I think if anyone starts to experience domestic violence, and it's pretty obvious that they are going to continue, they might say it'll never happen again. Guess what? It does. They should perhaps be getting some advice from the police, don't you think?
Absolutely. Get advice from a good family lawyer, and you can certainly go to the police, and they will assess your situation. If they feel that an intervention order is necessary, they will make an application on your behalf. Yeah,
great advice, Nicci. I'm so glad you came through it all, and now you can share your advice with others.
Me too. I'm sort of like the lawyer and the client all rolled into one.
You probably sit there and cry together.
I do. I feel like a very kindred spirit with my clients.
Well, they probably appreciate the fact you know what they're talking about.
I definitely do.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much, Nicci.
No, my absolute pleasure, Jenny.
Thank you indeed. Thank you. There you go.